I'm very happy, very proud to be here, and very proud to be Canadian. Amen. Yes. So I started that trip in Alberta last Sunday for a week, and it's one of my best weeks. Why? Because I feel like you guys. They called me in Toronto. That was a Global Mail it was in 2007, because I was a free market minister against corporate welfare. And they said, this guy Bernier is like an Albertan. So, yeah.
Good for you.
So good for me, yeah. I was very proud of that. And the title of the piece in the Global Mail in 2007 was Bernier, the Albertan from Quebec. And yes, it is my second home because we share the same values. We share the same values: individual freedom, personal responsibility, respect, and fairness. That's the foundation of the People's Party of Canada. But, you know, before creating the People's Party of Canada, you know, I have to look other political party and what was their platform. And I looked through a very old party and a kind of a platform in a book called the Blue Book. Do you remember the Blue Book? The Reform Party? Yeah. The Blue Book. So I've read the Blue Book. I said, my God, it's all that I believe in. You know, limited government, no more corporate welfare. That was part of the Blue Book at that time. But the problem with the Reform Party was that was a regional political party. And too bad, but Preston Manning was not speaking French. He was not able to have support in Quebec. And in Ontario, it took the Reform 6 years to be credible and being the official opposition in Ottawa. But for us, we have a platform based on the same values. And I knew that creating the People's Party of Canada, that these values and principles were very popular, because I did run on that platform when I was running for the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada 3 years ago. And I didn't win with 49% of the votes. So that was popular with Conservative. And then when Andrew Scheer said publicly in August last year that Maxime does not speak for the Conservative Party of Canada, and when Andrew Scheer told me that we won't take any of your ideas for our platform for the next election this year, this October. And I said to myself, you know, I have two choices. I can go back in the private sector. I was a banker in Montreal before being in politics. So I'm not a traditional politician. You want me to use that? Okay. Hello? Bon. I'm not a traditional politician. I work in the private sector, and I came in politics to fight for freedom and less government. And I did it. So we started that party based on these principles. It went very well. After a month, more than 30,000 founding members. And now we have more than 41,000 founding members. But the most important, we are a real national political party all across the country. It is not a party from Quebec for Quebec. It is a national party for all Canadians. All Canadians. And we have a membership all over the country. And we have riding association, EDAs, all over the country in 338 ridings in this country. And I can tell you that here in Alberta, we have 32 candidates. But in 2 weeks from now, we'll have 34 candidates, because there's 34 ridings in Alberta. Because in the two other ridings, there's a nomination over there. We're so popular that people want to represent the People's Party and represent you in Ottawa. So in 2 weeks from now, we'll have a full slate of candidates in Alberta, and in maybe a month from now, we'll have 338 candidates way before the official general election. So a real national party with bold reforms that are good for this country. And I'll give you an example. So I'm in Alberta, we'll speak about pipelines, but I'm speaking about pipelines also in Quebec. So why it's so important to be able to build national infrastructures in this country? Because it's for the unity and the prosperity of our country. It is not for me a buzzword, unity and prosperity. It's nice, I'm going to say that. No. It's because I believe in it, and I know you. And I know that you are mad. They call me Mad Max. I'm mad also. I'm mad like you. I'm mad. I'm looking what's happening in Ottawa, that no traditional politicians, no one is ready to fight for pipelines, including my former friend Andrew Scheer. And you're so mad that now in Alberta, there's a little independentist movement. But we had, in 1968 in Quebec, a little independentist movement with René Lévesque. And after 10 years, René Lévesque and the PQ, the independentist party, were in government. So if we don't do anything right now, maybe in 10 years in Alberta, that independentist movement will be in power here. And I think for the future of this country, it is important to solve that problem about pipeline. So how can we do that? It's simple. It's simple. And Andrew Scheer won't do it, Justin Trudeau, Jack Midseed, and all the other leaders, they won't do it. And what I'm telling you, I want you, when you go back home, YouTube, and search for Bernier Pipelines, Quebec, and you'll find a video of me doing an interview in Quebec in French, and we translate that, so you'll be able. But I explain to Quebecers why it's important to be able to approve pipeline in this country. And I know that you're mad at our premier in Quebec that said, and he did that a couple of months ago, that he doesn't want dirty oil in Quebec. And he said also that there's no social acceptability for pipelines in Quebec. So you must say to yourself, why Bernier, as a politician, if he wants to win seats in Quebec, is speaking for pipeline over there if there's no social acceptability? He must be crazy. I'm not, because Quebecers are not crazy. Quebecers understand, after the huge tragedy that we had in Lac Mégantic 6 years ago, that it is safer for the environment and safer for the population to transport oil and gas by pipelines instead of by trains. And we have in Quebec pipelines in the ground. There's pipelines in Quebec. And they know that in 2019 we can build pipelines with the great new technology. So when I'm speaking for pipelines in Quebec, I am in line with the population. What's happening with the Quebec government? They're working with the radical environmentalists, and that's why the premier is saying there's no social acceptability. But that's not true. So to be able to build a pipeline, yes, we need to convince Quebecers, and that's my job. I'm almost there, because 40% of them agree with us that it's okay to build pipelines in Quebec. So, but the provincial government is against that. So the only way to be able to have a interprovincial pipelines, or, like Andrew Scheer said, a national corridor, what do they call that? Energy corridor. But it's very nice. It's a nice buzzword, an energy corridor. Oh my God. People doesn't, the provincial government in BC and in Quebec don't want a pipeline, so we'll call that a national corridor instead of calling that pipelines. And they will be in agreement with that. But it's wrong. To build his national corridor, he will need the approval of the Quebec government and the approval of the BC government. And the only way to be able to do that is to use our Constitution. We have a great Constitution. And in the Constitution, there's a section, a clause, 9210. And we must use that. What is that clause, 9210? It's easy. You just have to pass a legislation at the federal government in Ottawa. One page is legislation and one paragraph. Very simple. You just have to say that this pipeline, name the pipeline, I don't know which one, so because that would be built by the private sector. So the private sector will come to us and they will do some consultation, because we need to do consultation. The Supreme Court said you need to do consultation. It's okay, we'll have consultation, but it won't be 3 years consultation. It will be a couple of months. After that, we will pass that legislation, and the legislation will say, this pipeline is for the national interests of our country. That's it. That's it. When you do that, the federal government has the full authority, the full jurisdiction, the full responsibility to approve pipelines. That's it, that's done. So what will be the reaction of the Quebec government, of the BC government? They will go in front of the court. But because we use the Constitution, and because of that we have the full jurisdiction, they won't be able to stop it. They won't be able to stop it. That's the only way. That's the only way. But Andrew Scheer won't do it. And when I said that in French, in Quebec, with TVA on TV, and I explained all that to the journalist over there, he asked me if I understand you pretty well, and the journalist was smart. He said, you will impose a pipeline on Quebec. I said, yes, you're right. You're right. What was the reaction in Quebec after that? It was all in the news in French, the front page of the newspaper in Quebec. Bernier wants to impose pipeline on Quebec. Oh my God, I'm in big trouble. But no, I was not in big trouble. Because you know what happened? All the journalists called my office. We want to speak to the crazy Bernier. So I was all day long doing interviews with radio station, TV station, all over the province. Yeah. And I had the opportunity to explain our position to Quebecers. I was everywhere, and I explained what I just told you. And it's the common sense. And Quebecers understand the common sense. So that's why speak about what you believe with conviction, with facts, with passion, and people will understand it. So that was great for me. I had a good coverage all over the province for a couple of days, not only one day, for a couple of days. So, and I went in my writing after that, and people in my writing, Maxime, that was fun what you said about imposing a pipeline. You're right. We need to have pipelines. We want to buy oil and gas from Canada, not from other countries. So, the end of the story, a real story, I like social media. It's all on the internet. So you can check what I'm saying and you'll see I'm a kind of an anti-politician. But you know, all our team here, they were proud to tell you that they're not politicians. And that's okay. They're not politicians. They're going to speak the truth. They're going to speak to you and defend you and bring your values in Ottawa. That's what we want. So the week after, the journalist said, my God, that was great, and we must ask Andrew Scheer to come on TV. So the same journalist, the same political show in Quebec, called Andrew Scheer, and he was that. And I must admit, that day, Andrew had a very good French. His French was very good. Because I know what it is. Sometimes myself, when I'm tired, you know, I have to work harder to express myself in English. But I must admit, his French was good. Not very good, was good. So, so they asked to Andrew the question, so Andrew, what do you want to do for pipelines? And Andrew said, oh, you know, I have an idea. I'm going to build, how do you call that again? Corridor. Corridor, yeah. A national energy corridor. Oh, okay, the journalist said, okay, and it will be good for Quebec because in my corridor, we'll have a pipeline, and also for the electricity from Quebec, Quebec will be able to sell electricity to Ontario using the same corridor. But the journalist was smart, and he said to Andrew, do you know that Ontario doesn't want to buy electricity from Quebec? And Andrew didn't answer the question, like a traditional politician. And that's right. Quebec is selling right now electricities to the state of New York and other states in the US. And yes, it's true that the Quebec government hope that today they can sell some electricity to Ontario. But recently, yesterday, Ford said they had a kind of a conference together, the premier, and Ford said, no, I don't want to buy electricity from Quebec. So the journalist said, you won't convince the Quebec government, what are you going to do? Oh, he said, you know, we'll have discussion with Quebec, and I'll be able to, you know, Quebecers will understand it's so important for the prosperity of Quebecers also, and it will create jobs in Montreal, that pipeline, and I will be able to convince the Quebec government. And the journalist said, I don't think you will. We had Bernier here last week, and Bernier said that he's ready to use the Constitution, and Scheer said, no, we don't need to use the Constitution. But Bernier said he's ready to impose a pipeline on Quebec. You know, politicians, before speaking, they're doing focus group. Why focus group is so important? Because they want to be politically correct. And they want to convince you, but they don't want to upset you. So they need to have the right word. And so they're doing focus group, and they try to convince you with the right word. But the word impose, you don't use that word. You know, you're not politically correct. So Bernier said he wanted to impose a pipeline on Quebec. And she said, oh, no. I won't do that. I won't do that. I want to impose a pipeline on Quebec. So he used the same word because it's so important for Quebecers to understand that they will respect the Quebec government. And I want to impose a pipeline on Quebec. And you can find all that on YouTube. So if you think that the Liberals, the NDP, or the Conservatives will help you to build that pipeline, forget it. Forget it. But not only about pipeline, equalization. Are you mad to be taxed and giving your money to other provinces and that they can have daycare for $5 and things like that, that you may not have here? And are you mad that your money, and when you are in an economic difficulty right now in Alberta, that you're still a rich province and you're still paying in the equalization formula? I think you are, yes. And I understand why.
Yeah. We're mad.
Yeah, you're mad, and I'm mad also. That's why. So what we can do, we can change the formula to be fair for everybody. Fair for you, fair for Quebecers, and fair for everybody. And it's so important for you here in Alberta that your premier, Jason, said that he may do a referendum on the equalization money, maybe in a year from now, if it's not happened to have the pipelines. But it's good. I know referendum. I'm coming from Quebec. Ooh. You know, we have two national sports, hockey and referendum. So don't go there. But it's so important, and Jason knows that it is a federal jurisdiction equalization. He cannot do anything here at the provincial level. Jason understands the Constitution. So he tried to push a referendum. Nothing will happen. The most important is you have a political party, the PPC, that will do it. And it's in our platform. You can go on our website, you read it about the equalization. What is our solution? We want to give the right incentive to other provinces to develop their natural resources. And because of the equalization, usually they have a big government at the provincial level, a lot of programs, and when you have a big government, you have a smaller private sector. And who's create wealth in this country? It is you. It is the private sector. So in Quebec, at the provincial level, and in New Brunswick, they have big, fat provincial governments, and there's no places for the private sector. So that's why they receive a lot of equalization. We need to change that. We need to give them the right incentive to develop their own resources. And in Quebec, there's a lot of shale gas. In New Brunswick also. So what we must do, and also it's not politically correct to say that, we must be less generous. We must be less generous because it is a poverty trap. I don't understand that in Quebec we receive equalization money for the last 45 years. It's a poverty trap. We need to change that, change the formula. And we can do it. And we don't need to have consultation. We can just have a meeting, a cabinet meeting. It will start at 8 o'clock Wednesday morning. And on the order or the agenda, it will be change equalization formula. And we'll have a discussion with the minister. And I think we'll have an agreement with, and I will have an agreement with my PPC ministers. And at 12 o'clock, we'll have a new formula. And that will be enforced. And that will give the right incentive to all the other provinces to do that, to develop their own natural resource like you're doing here. So Andrew Scheer is not speaking about that. And he won't, because he's pandering to Quebec. And he thinks that he won't have seats in Quebec if he's saying that. But let me know. I want you to know, okay. I want you to know that what I'm telling you is not new. I said that in a speech in Quebec 7 years ago. And it was all in the news 7 years ago. When I'm speaking about being less generous in Quebec on the equalization money, it's not in the news anymore because they covered it 7 years ago and people know our position over there. I delivered a speech in Quebec in French and I said, you know what? I'm not proud to be Quebecers when Quebec receives equalization money because if we receive equalization money, it's because we are a poor province. The goal must be to receive zero equalization money, and like that, Quebec will be a rich province. That must be the goal. And I said that in French, and I explained that to Quebecers, and they're intelligent. They want to be a richer province, They want to have more freedom and a freer government, a limited government in Quebec, and more freedom and more investment and the development of their own natural resources. So I said that 7 years ago, and I'm still speaking about that in Quebec. But when I'm speaking about that in Quebec, it's not it's not in the news anymore because it's not new. But that's okay. That's okay. And so that's what I'm telling you. What I like in politics, I like to have policies that are based on principles and on great principles: individual freedom, limited government, free market, free enterprise, and changing the equalization formula. It is for a better country. And it is so important today because you in Alberta, you are thinking about maybe the independence. And I don't want that. That's why it's time to speak about it right now and to solve that other problem right now. And the only party, it is us. It is not the Conservative, the Liberal, the NDP. So go on our website and read our platform, speak with our candidates. They will tell you the same thing. We are the solution for your frustration. We are the solution, the PPC. Not the PC, not the Conservative at the federal level. I'm always speaking about the Conservative Party of Ottawa. But first of all, they're not Conservative anymore. Yeah. And I didn't say that. Andrew Scheer said it. Andrew Scheer said, you know, the new Conservative Party of Canada, under my leadership, is now a centrist, pragmatic, political party with a lot of ideas for a lot of people. Translation. I don't have any ideas. I don't have any vision. I don't know what I believe in. I will do everything to have your vote. I will tell you what you want to hear. And maybe I will do it if I'm elected. So no principle, a centrist political party. That's the new Conservative Party of Canada. And what Andrew Scheer wants to do, he wants to split the vote. Yes, split the vote. He wants to split the Liberal votes. And he's going far left, from the right to the middle, centrist, and now more a little bit to the left, to be sure to be elected. And he's not speaking with his conviction. He's not speaking based on principle.